Today we're keeping an open mind. Hey there, I'm Vicki Howell, your host, and we are working with drop stitches to create a lacy knitted fabric and then creating open work through crochet, one loop at a time. Julia Medell is our first guest. Let's go over and meet her. So hey there, we are here with Julia. This is my buddy. We work a lot together, and I'm so excited to have you here all the way from the Canadas.
From the Canadas,
So
the
thank
foreign
you.
country.
Thanks for coming to see me and talking about your awesome top. I love
Yeah,
it.
this top right here.
Let's dive right in and talk about, we're really talking about open weave today. And this is kind of a simple way to start an open fabric, but really it has a great effect.
Yeah, it's a really simple stitch pattern, simple construction that I think gives a great effect for, even if you're just a beginner, you don't really need to learn how to do really complicated lace, and you can get a really neat open work effect.
Great. Well, let's dive right in. So we're working with drop stitches, and you've created this adorable weave version to make it easier to see.
Yes, the mini version. So you can see that the shape really is a T, and when we open it up, you can see how it's constructed all in one piece. So we're starting from the front waistband essentially. So we'll say this is the front, working up, casting on for the sleeves, and then you cast off in the center to create the neck opening. Work either side separately for a little while, then cast on again and work down the back the same way.
All right, well, it's a knitting show, so why don't we get knitting?
All right, so if we're starting at this waistband, it's not a waistband that cinches in, it's just sort of a bottom border.
Right.
And it's just garter stitch, so you're knitting every row, super easy. But the drop stitch pattern that we're gonna get into is a slightly different gauge, so we're gonna need to work a few increases across before we get into the stitch pattern.
Right, and let's also mention why you're working on circular needles.
Right, very important. When we're working, this is a very loose fitting top, and because it's all in one piece, you're working from one sleeve cuff all the way up and over to the other, you're gonna end up with a lot of stitches.
That's a lot of stitches, right.
So you really need the circular needle to accommodate them all, but you're just working back and forth in rows.
So you're not working in the round, but you do use a circular needle, just to be clear.
Super important. So we don't really need to go into too much detail here. I believe the pattern is written out so that you work, it's say 15 stitches, and then work a few increases, and it's a make one increase. So lifted bar on the needle, work through the back loop. I kind of do it a little funny there.
I love watching the different way people do it. And it's very different, from industry. You would think even industry professionals the same. It's not at all.
Yeah, we all get there the same way though, right? We'll get
as long as you get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've increased.
Do a few increases, and that's just going to keep the sides straight. And then let's get into the actual drop stitch pattern.
Okay, and while she's setting up, I also just want to let you know that they are providing this pattern for free on the website.
So the first few, it's an 8-row, I believe an 8-row repeat, and the first few rows are just stocking stitch. So you're knitting on the right side, purling on the wrong side. Then there's one knit row on the wrong side to create this purl ridge, and that's going to separate our dropped stitch just visually. And the way we're making it, it's not really a drop stitch where you're dropping and oh no, I dropped a stitch and it's laddering down. They're really yarn overs. So I'm going to knit into this stitch, and instead of the way you would normally yarn over the needle and then bring your stitch through, I'm going to yarn over the needle 3 times. So can I count to 3?
Yeah, I believe in you.
And bring all of those loops through. So you're creating 3 stitches out of 1, but we're going to get back in the next row and drop 2 of those wraps in order to create this elongated stitch.
So it's really more like drop loops versus drop stitches.
Exactly.
But,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you've already you've worked that whole row, and now you're ready to start dropping stitches.
So if you can see this, we've got a stitch, 3 stitches, and we're going to turn it back into 1. So I'm knitting into the first loop here, and then pulling all 3 loops off.
And that's going to seem super scary.
Yeah, and
but
you know,
do it. You can do it.
And this metallic yarn's a little slippery. You got to be careful.
Right. So maybe even using a bamboo needle might be helpful if people are super nervous about that.
Yeah, sure. And it's whatever your preference is. But yeah, this is the row where, you know, you can't be watching TV.
Right.
You gotta
And
pay
so
a
you
little
just-
bit of attention.
So you drop every yarn over all the way across and then knit every knit stitch,
Yeah.
right?
And if you want to be super careful at the end of the row, you could, you know, count your stitches to make sure you're back to what you were before you started the
Okay,
pattern.
so great tip. You know, you probably could fudge it here or there because of the shaping, but if you want to count your
Exactly.
stitches and make sure it's the original stitch
Yeah,
count.
if you're one off, you could fudge it, but, you know.
You didn't hear that from us. All right, so we've done that all the way across, and you can see here, this is really nice. I'm gonna grab that. These needles go rogue. And you can see it's got that really cool open weave effect with minimal amount of fuss, but really, really big impact. So what's next?
So now, if we've got our waistband, you continue this pattern for several inches, and then we need to cast on for our sleeves. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to show you the knitted cast on method. So this is, I've finished my row, and now I'm going to add stitches for my sleeves. So I'm going to knit into this stitch, drop my loop, and then I'm going to put it back on the left-hand needle here.
Okay, great, and that just increased a stitch.
So I just turned one stitch into two, and then I'm going to knit into that stitch, do the same thing over and over.
And if you wouldn't mind pointing that out on the actual piece, what you just created, that would be great.
So this is what we're doing here. We've knit across, and I'm adding stitches to add extra fabric for the one sleeve, and then you're going to turn around and knit that row and do the same thing on the other side.
And why that particular cast on?
Well, if you're using a long tail cast on, you really can't do that at the end of a row.
Right, right.
There are other methods to do it, but I like this one. It's clean, it's simple. You know.
That's great. Yeah, and so then you're going to go ahead and just follow the pattern and create the neck shaping, and then you kind of lather, rinse, repeat, only in reverse.
Yeah, it's, you know, once you've got the stitch pattern down, it's really quite easy. And when we're bind up for the neck and cast on, you would use the same method.
The same
that I just
method,
showed
okay.
you.
And
Yeah.
then, you know, I don't know that we'll walk all the way through it, but maybe we can talk seaming just a little bit. So you've got this great piece. You showed us in the beginning, but maybe you could show us again how you lay it out to when you were going to seam it together.
Yeah, so you're just folding it, and this particular garment, the neck shaping is such that there is no front and back.
Great.
So if you get it backwards, who cares?
No big whoop, no big whoop.
cares?
So you're just gonna really fold it up and then use your what's your preferred method? Whip stitch?
For seaming,
Mattress
for this I would
stitch?
do mattress stitch.
Mattress stitch.
Yeah.
And you do have to work a little bit because you've got these bigger loops and little ones to make sure it's even. Just take a little time. Take a little time, but then you just go up the seams, and that's really all there is to it.
Yeah, easy peasy.
That's awesome. I really, really like it, and it looks amazing on you. So up next, we are going to, well, I'm going to spend a little cyber time with knitting editor Sarah E. White.